Okay, well, welcome to the Fotobug Snapshots. We thought we would give little tips, and we had
Hints
ones
and
that blow your
cool
mind.
things
But these
and-
are just little tips. And the first one, I'll let you introduce it.
Okay. Well, if you don't know by now, you should. I'm big into plant photography.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yes, you did.
Oh, I did.
Actually, you did.
I forgot.
But
Oh.
I get it. Not everybody loves it. But one of the things you can think about when you're inside, you're not outside. And one of the things Jim always likes to talk about is pay attention to two things. What is that for every picture?
Well, actually, three things: your background, your foreground, and the subject.
Yes, which is the third. But those two, background, foreground, because a lot of times people are so interested in the subject, they forget about.
Forget about the background, foreground. Yeah.
Hey, forget about it.
Hey,
That's
forget
what
about
they do.
it.
So, with that in mind,
Don't forget about it.
we've talked about that outdoors in backyard bird photography and plant photography. But what about when you're indoors? You have a nice vase with flowers in it. Now, you could take the vase and flowers and take the picture like a still life, maybe have some fruit or some other objects around it. Nothing wrong with that. But what if you just wanted to really highlight the flowers? Think about what your other options could be. Well, there are a couple of ways you could do that. One using a flash, and the other
Without a
using
flash.
ambient light,
Yeah.
but also making sure that you have a background that fills the bill. Because what happens with with the flash, darkens the background, right?
Yep. Yes.
And
well, as long as you use it appropriately.
Yes.
In order to have the ambient light underexposed.
Yes.
And you'll get a dark background.
And in that,
I should
Go
say,
ahead.
as long as your background is far enough back. If the
Sure.
background is close to your subject, then maybe not. So you want to make sure the background.
and we
is
have a
far
couple of
enough away.
examples for you.
Yeah, we do.
So you want to talk about the first
Yeah,
example?
we have this one. Well, this one was taken with a flash, and this is indoors, so you don't even necessarily have to go outdoors to do this.
Well, that's exactly it.
yeah.
You've got the flowers. You don't have to take them
You
outside.
take them out and just find a place in your house, set them
But
up.
what's cool is that you don't see the vase. You don't see anything else except the flowers are
Right.
highlighted. And, I think that's pretty cool looking.
And for the
Well,
Other way-
we used ambient light. And, of course, we had to put a background. So one of the things that we've talked about in the past with macro and plant photography is that you can take a slightly out of focus, and you probably want it not a flat background, not a glossy or anything like that where it reflect, but you want to have a nice flat matte picture, and it's slightly out of focus. So if you see this one, it has the greens and the other colors. It looks like just other
yeah, and in
plants.
fact, we should mention that we use tungsten lights, regular lights, and so it has a nice warm tone to it too.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind.
So nothing really
And look,
unusual or special.
When you get the little LED lights, which are coming down in price, so they're
Right.
very inexpensive.
But it really wasn't that hard to do,
Nope.
and both of them achieved what we wanted to do. One where it looked like natural light and a natural background, the other using the flash to darken down the background. Either one can really feature what you're trying to focus on without having the background of a kitchen or a living room or whatever. Again, nothing wrong with still lifes. Again, you want a good background and foreground for those, though. You don't want to have something where it looks like it's in the garage and, hey, it's a great still life, but
Well, these are great.
I got
ways,
my
too.
1970s poster
You
of
got that Christmas gift that you don't want. You got to list it on eBay. Here's a great technique that
Yes.
you can use for
for
isolating
that item.
item.
And we talked about that in a prior podcast. So
So-
cool stuff.
Yeah, so that was our first snapshot. So for the next one, I think we're going to go outside
Okay.
and bring that one in here. So why don't we go ahead and do that?
All right.
Okay. Slow dissolve.
So that's our two snapshots. And basically, those are going to be the little tips, hints, tricks, things that
Yeah.
we can.
One thing I would mention,
Sure.
hopefully these give you a little inspiration, and if so, please post your images to our our
The Facebook page, yes.
page, and
Right.
share those with us and our other listeners. We would really appreciate it.
Or if you have a question on something like that, and we can turn it into a snapshot for you.
Yep.
When you talk about lighting, when you want to talk about placement, when
Yeah,
you want to
there's
talk
lots of
about what to do
things.
with backgrounds and foregrounds when they're not cooperating.
Yep.
You know, there's all those things that are challenged.
I
But
can think
these are
of
the
another
things
one.
that help
What do you do when the sky is just milky white? That would be a good one. Yeah.
Or that dull blue back
Or,
behind.
yeah, solid blue.
What are those things that you can do with that dull, solid blue behind your subject? So
But that's it for this time, but there's more to come. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. We had a request came in, and somebody was asking us how we could go about, and in fact, I think you received email about hummingbirds. So,
Trying to capture them in flight without freezing the wings completely or getting
Yeah.
too much blur.
so we thought we'd do a Fotobug snapshot on how to set up your camera with or without a flash in order to stop wings. This could apply to insects as well as hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds. It
Birds
also
in
can apply.
flight.
There's certain types of birds in flight that have a rapid wing.
Yeah, and I don't think
what would we
anything's
call that?
more
Wing
rapid
flap?
than a hummingbird.
Hummingbirds, pretty much. But one of the ones we were talking about, the scissortail flycatcher,
Yeah.
has a very rapid wing beat. So, you know,
Yeah,
if you wanted to
like
catch that,
some birds that tend to glide, like woodpeckers, tend
Right.
to have that glide, glide, flap, glide. Anyway, we looked up, and average speed of a hummingbird wing is about
70 beats.
Yeah, 70, 80 beats per second. And well, we don't. Unfortunately, we have few hummingbirds around here. We at least can't depend upon them. I see very few in my.
We did a
yard here.
casting call and nobody answered.
So what we thought we would do is we're going to use a little Mavic drone, and we determined that it's around 4,900 RPMs, which comes
translates
down
to about 80
per
beats
second.
per second.
So it'll at least give us something that we can use
So if we
as
can
a demonstrate.
successfully slow that down
Yeah.
on film, so where you can see slight blur, but you see the propellers.
Yeah, you probably do want a little bit of blur on the
Yeah.
wings because you don't want to frozen. It looks like he's kind of frozen in midair. And another thing, this can go just the opposite of this would be for prop airplanes,
Same thing.
where you don't want that prop to be frozen
You
because
want it
otherwise
to
it
be
looks like it's
hanging in
gliding in
air.
a hang glider.
Looks like a cheap cheap science fiction movie
Like
or
a
something.
glider. So you want a little bit of blur on that prop. So for those, you probably want at least a 250th of a second, or maybe a little less. Usually around 250th to a 300th of a second is ideal for an airplane prop. Now for the birds, it depends on the bird, but for the, let's say, fast moving insects, wings or hummingbirds, probably 1/2000th of a second, 1/2500th of a second. So let's set up, Fred, the little Mavic and run some tests and show you. All right, so here's our setup. And the first one we're going to do, we've set the camera up at 2,000ths of a second. And of course, we're in the shade here. So I think at ISO, thinking back
Yeah,
in old days.
Film days.
ISO 400, same thing. ISO 400, and I think it's set at a f4. I've got it on shutter priority, which we rarely use. So down here, we're going to use the little Mavic as our hummingbird.
Yeah, that's going to be the about 80 beats per second or revolutions
Yep.
per second.
So let's go ahead and see what we got here.
Okay.
All right, so there we go. We've got our Mavic running, probably around 80th a second approximately. We're not going to actually take it off and fly. We're just going to leave it there. Fred, you want me to take, or you want to take a picture of one of the props? Yeah, this is 2,000ths of a second. Ooh. Oh, the flash is on. The flash is not supposed to be on.
Okay.
Sorry about
Sorry
that.
about that.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see what we got there. Oh, look at that. Okay, so 2,000ths of a second. It definitely has,
And they even did it with the flash, though.
yep. So let's, while we're doing that, so that's a 2,000ths of a second, and it did stop those around 80. So let's go ahead and reset that, if I may.
Hang on. Let's get one more. A little better focused.
All right, I'm going to reset this here.
Let's see. Yeah, much better.
Yep. Fantastic. Yeah, just a little bit of a blur, which is what
Yep,
we want.
what we wanted.
So I'm going to set this now down to, I'm going to leave it on, I'm going to set it down to the flash sync, which is on this camera, 2/50th of a second. Yep. So we're going to set it 2/50th of a second. And we'll leave it at ISO 400. It's now at f8. I'll do this one. How's that?
Sure.
So this is with the flash at 2/50th of a second. And now the flash, shall I do one more?
Sure.
Because it froze it, but you can see it's kind of,
It's moving a little.
yeah.
You get some blur.
Yep. It's got a little bit of blur. And you can always take your flash and you can knock it down.
Right.
Like I've got down 2/3 of a stop, and that will actually flash a little quicker. Oh, it didn't make any difference at all, did it?
Not too much.
So actually this should be on manual, I think, to do that. So let's do it on manual. I'm going to go down to 0.7 and see what that does to us here.
A little too much.
Yep. Knock our ISO down here. Try again. Because the flash is on manual, you might have to, oh, I know what's going on. I am a professional. Do not attempt this at home. I got to go up to 1/8. I'm going to go on manual. Yeah, that's what's wrong. Okay. Woodpecker is
Woodpecker just not liking what we're doing.
there we go.
There you go.
So got a little bit blur. We can knock this down even further. Here's 1/4. Just to show you an idea what the flash can do there. And there we
There
go.
you go.
So hopefully that gives you an idea.
So if you like using the flash, you have the settings for that. I tend to not use one as much as Jim does. He's our what would you call yourself? Speedlight ace?
Yeah.
He's our speedlight
In
ace.
fact, we're going to do a special just on speed lights because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are confused
people-
and don't understand. So
And there's a lot you can do with them. And there we go.
now that's going more than
That's going to be a little bit more than the normal.
look, it's
RPM.
teleporting. It's teleporting. All right. Well, we're going to have some fun with the drone, and we'll see you in the next
Snapshot.
Next snapshot. Yes.